Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Theory. In this podcast, we have Jimmy from Southern Missouri, and he was willing to talk about his Bigfoot and Dogman encounters with me today here on the show. Jimmy lived close to one of my past guests from the Current River area in Missouri, and he said these encounters took place near David's farm. If you have not had a chance to listen to David's interview in the past about the killing fields, I highly encourage you to do so, and I will share his interviews at the end of this video. Jimmy was visiting a friend's property in southern Missouri, and the guy had a big cattle ranch. Jimmy said he would see these creatures hiding behind the trees and coming out into the middle of these fields, seeking their next meal. He said the farmer would find animal carcasses in the middle of the field, and he would have missing calves and cattle that were never seen again. What startled me the most about this interview were the amount of Dogman encounters, and it seems like there are just as many Dogman encounters in this area as Bigfoot encounters. It is really dangerous for people to be deep in the wilderness areas when the activity is taking place, because you could go out there looking for Bigfoot or just simply be camping or hunting, and you may run into one of these creatures. A lot of people, and that's most people, are not aware of the cryptid phenomenon, and they think it's just a joke, but if people truly knew how many folks go missing in these wilderness areas without a trace, they would seriously consider the idea that these creatures may just exist. If you have had these same types of encounters anywhere in North America, or if you are from the Van Buren area in Missouri and want to talk about your Bigfoot and cryptid encounters, please contact me sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. I understand people not wanting to talk about this because of the ridicule, but you also have to consider how many people's lives have been impacted by this. How many kids go hunting and exploring in these same woods? And we cannot let the evil forces of this world defeat the good that is in it. We are allowing evil to prevail by staying silent, and that's not good either. Alright guys, let's dive into our next Bigfoot interview in the Current River area from the state of Missouri. All right, Jimmy, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself, Miguel?
Doing pretty good, enjoying the warm Missouri weather. Jimmy, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, and your Bigfoot and cryptid experiences from the very beginning.
Okay, I grew up in southeast Missouri, hunting the Ozarks, and I've probably hunted the Ozarks for probably about 45 years. And there's a lot of things that goes on in the Ozarks that people don't realize it's there. I mean, you hear stories, from your locals and everything, and it's kind of blow it off. You see things, and at a distance, you write them off. You can't identify it for sure what it is. You see something, well, it could have been a guy in black, even though it's gun season, and should have been wearing orange, and somebody in black, sometimes a buckskin color, walking upright on the next ridge from you. And things just here the last 15 years is when everything really come to life for me. Actually having encounters and seeing things, and it's very hard to wrap your brain around these things, when you've been out there hunting for this long and you've never seen none of this crap, it really it's making me stutter just thinking about it, because you kind of lose train of thought. You even when you see it, you don't wrap your brain around it. Your mind does not want to accept it, because you're taught these things don't exist. This is Hollywood, and no, these things are real. I don't care what anybody says. And I know I've had so many experiences compared to a lot of people. And I kind of found out from a person one time that was kind of into the paranormal stuff, and we was talking about some things, and they said the reason why I see so many things is because I'm open. My mind is open. I don't reject anything until I know for sure. Just if somebody says they saw something, odds are they saw something. but everybody has a different way of describing what they saw. You know, when you see something that's not supposed to exist, it's hard to describe it to a T. A lot of people have all these great details and stuff, and it's to me, there's some details that just stood out, and others it's just horror. You know, it's just it's scary. I mean, it's scary, you know, and it kind of leaves you in shock for a while.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So, your first encounter, what were you doing that day and what took place? If you can, describe everything in full detail, please.
okay, a friend of mine has a place up there. He's not too far from up there where you're doing the killing fields at, from what he's told me. And I met him up in Van Buren, Missouri. There used to be a little bar up there. I used to visit up there many, many, many years ago, and that's where we met at. We become friends, and he'd invite me out. You know, he said, "Yeah, you come up to my farm deer hunt." He said, "I got deer everywhere if you don't mind the Bigfoot." And I kind of laughed it off, like, "Yeah, all right." And he said, "No." He said, "Come on." He said, "Come up this weekend." He said, "I'll show you a Bigfoot." And he owns several hundred acres, you know, and in the hills, you got scattered pastures. They're broke up with, you know, the fields are broken up with woodlots everywhere. You'll drive through a woodlot to get to the next field. You know, it may be 100-acre field, but then you got woods all around it, and then you go through another little road through the woods. You go to another field. And I went up there one Saturday. I don't think it was the following Saturday. I think it was the week after, but I made it up there, and we he showed me a Bigfoot for sure. And I mean, we got to see it, and what it is, what he come to the conclusion was they never was messing with his cattle. He thought they was eating the sweet feed he was dumping out for the cattle, because every time there were certain spots that was deep back on his place. I mean, the Mark Twain wraps around him too up there. He said they hear his truck coming, and you can see them. They'll come up the edge of the tree line. They'll stay 100, yards from you, but you can see them. They ain't scared. And he thought that's what they was doing, was when he come out, he has these feeding troughs set up in different pastures out there where he dumps that sweet feed for the cattle. And sure enough, we saw one. It was probably 9, 10 foot tall. I mean, the cedar tree, we went back a few weeks later and we checked out that tree, and it was standing next to that tree. Was about 9 foot or about 12 foot tall. And he wasn't much shorter than that tree. And it wasn't big and bulky. It was kind of long, you know, it was kind of lanky looking. And a couple other times we went up there, we caught one crossing the field one day, and man, that thing was a getting. It was a shorter one. It was bulkier looking, and it was running upright, and it was just, you know, had several encounters up there, but these are always at a distance. I mean, you ain't got time to break out the glasses or nothing. If they know that you're looking at them, they'll step off behind a tree, you know. But they're watching. I mean, if he goes out to feed, they come out, especially in the evenings.
Okay.
He just
If you can, describe the details on the Sasquatch, like kind of what happened, what were you guys doing whenever you went out there, and kind of what transpired.
Well, he just did his normal routine, except he had me with him. We'd stop at these feeding troughs, and he'd dump several bags of sweet feed out, and we just go from field to field doing that. I mean, it takes about an hour to circle his whole place, you know, and feed all the cow, you know, because you're creeping around. But these were everything I've ever seen up there was anywhere from like a dark brown to a jet black, and the bodies, the bodies on them buried to being thick, you know, real thick. You know, I could, you know, at the distance that we was looking at, you know, I can't say well it was muscled up, but they were big. Some of them was really big. I mean, they were bulk, they were wide, they were thick, and some of the seemed like the bigger ones was longer, taller, thinner, and lankier. Uh, and it seemed real spooky. It seemed like they knew I was there whenever I was with him, because if I get out of the truck and try to get out, get a better look, they'd step back into the trees. You could still see it was there, but you couldn't really get a good look at them. And looking through the windshield, you know, when you're trying to look through a windshield, especially if it's got a bunch of bug guts on it, you're not seeing as good, but you can see it when you step out. That's when step off. But like I said, we caught that one cross in that field one day. That's probably the best look I have, and it was the thickest, the heaviest built one I'd ever seen, and it was moving. I mean, it went across like an 80-acre field in just seconds. I mean, it was across there. I mean, it was in the middle of the field when we first saw it, and by the time we got stopped and got out and was trying to get a look at it, it was gone. I mean, uh, I think it hurt him in the other field, and it was coming down. It was kind of get down to the field we had just came from. And it was running behind or something. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But we would at that point we just run out of feed, and we were just circling around to go back to his house when we saw that one. But there's been a lot of times we went up there and you could see glimpses of them. You could see outlines up in the woods, and you could see them. Sometimes you'd see one up there and they'd be rocking back and forth and just watching and waiting, for us to leave the field. And he swears up and down he thinks they're eating the sweet field. Like I said, I don't know. But now with the phones the way they are, if he was to take somebody up there, which he don't want nobody to know about it, he don't want people labeling it as crazy and crap. But he always told me, he said, you can come up anytime you want. But he said, if you bring your cell phone, it's shut off. It's in your pocket. He said, no pictures. He said, I don't want no publicity. I don't want the crazies coming around, as he said, and I don't blame him. I mean, I really don't. He's kind of a recluse, and that's just the way he prefers to be. And he don't want the publicity from it. But I mean, that's a place I think a guy could really get some pictures up there if a guy could ever talk him into it. And that's where I really got my first looks at these things and knew for sure. Then I knew they really existed. I laid eyes on from a distance, and that's comfortable. That's the way I'd prefer to have kept it.
Yeah, that is interesting. And what time of year was it whenever you had these encounters?
This would have been early fall. I would say right around the started going up there. I think it was a couple days before Halloween the first time I went up there. I want to say it was just before Halloween, and I've been up there several times since then. Because, like I said, this has been quite a while back before I started having encounters on the other encounters I was telling you about earlier about on the place that I hunt now. That I've been hunting for over 15 years, and never seen anything up close, and never seen no threat out of them or nothing.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And be sure to talk about the encounters that you told me off air. That way we have them logged down as well.
okay. Well, I'm going to move away from that because really that's about the most you can say. I mean, you see them, you get glimpses of them. You know how they'll play peekaboo around the trees with you and stuff. You see them, they're there. But this place I hunt now, my first encounter on this place was a spring turkey season. I hunt the same spot on this farm every year. It's a grown-up farm. Nobody's lived there probably in over 15 years. So it's growed up. I mean, the pasture's growed up. It's just a big, huge thicket. It had been logged out. I mean, it's thick, and there's a power line that runs through it. And I hunt this one spot on the power line. It's a good crossing. The deer and turkey they're hunting there is excellent. And one spring season, I was sitting up there and I set up a turkey blind, same spot right next to where my ladder stand that stays up there every year. And the turkeys, this hill, I'm hunting on top of this hill. And this ridge runs right towards Current River. And probably about 100, 150 yards from me, it drops off into the river bottoms right down to Current River. It's not far from where I'm sitting at. And the turkeys was down in the river bottoms that morning on the adjoining property. So I just sat there and called because the hens usually come up later in the morning after they get their breeding. And they come up there and they nest up there on the farm that I hunt because it's so thick. They nest up there every year. It's just a great spot for that. And the turkeys was just gobbling like crazy down there that morning. And all of a sudden it went dead silent. And I'm like, the turkey shut. And I wasn't hearing nothing. I was like, I wasn't hearing crows or nothing. And I'm sitting just inside the tree line facing the hill goes up just a little more onto the adjoining property. I'm hunting right next to a fence almost, but within about 30, 40 yards of it. And all of a sudden, the sun had just come up over the trees. And it was coming in from my right side, and I wear glasses, and it was putting a glare in my glasses, and I see what I think is two hunters stepping out from the left side that I'm on, and I couldn't understand how I didn't see them get to there where they was at, because I could see the woods is open up through there, especially on the ground. You can see a long ways up through there, and they stepped out into the power line, and one of them was taller than the other, and I thought they was wearing that leafy wear or ghillie suits or something. And I finally reached up there and closed that, zipped that window up, and I blocked that sun out, and I got to looking, and these two things were walking at an angle up the hill away from me on the power line, crossing it, and they were looking from left to right away from me. And I realized then, this ain't turkey hunters. They ain't got no guns. That ain't camouflage. And you can see the hair hanging off their arms and stuff. And the heights, I couldn't really. I'm going to guess say one was, the shorter one was probably 6 foot, and the other one was probably 7.5 foot, because the one was a good head higher, better than the other one. And I think somebody had come in on the adjoining property over the hill from me and was hunting, and it was like they knew he was there. That I guess they didn't know I was there, and they was watching. They was really watching up the direction I was looking. I mean, they was walking away from me, and they was watching. I mean, they was scanning, and they never heard a sound. I mean, they just crept right on across there, and that was my first encounter. And they went into the woods, and just as quick as they appeared, they disappeared. And that was when I was like, wow, they was within 50 yards of me or less when they came out, and I didn't see them come through the woods to get to that power line. And like I said, it was open, and that was the first time I'd ever seen a Bigfoot up there. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, And it didn't. I didn't get shook up over it. I really didn't. It was just like I was amazed, because it was like they're here too. And where this is, I'll give this location up to a certain extent, but it's right there within say a mile and a half of the city limits of Doniphan, Missouri, right along Current River. I mean, it's southeast of town there. I mean, you could just about, if you got a little elevation, at night it gets darker, you can see the lights of town. It's lit up. I mean, you're real close to town. You can hear all the traffic in town, all the commotion and all that stuff. It's close enough you can hear, the city traffic and all that, town traffic and all that. But that was the first Bigfoot encounter that I had there. And that was, I think, that was like 3 or 4 years probably after I first started hunting that place. And then several years went by and nothing really happened. And I got comfortable up there again, I didn't look at them as a threat. It looked like to me like they was just trying to get out of there. So I wasn't too concerned about it. And I guess around 2017 it was, I was hunting on a foggy morning up there and spotted something I could see its back over the edge of the hill where the hill rolled over in the trees there, looking over on my left shoulder, because I'm facing at an angle looking up this power line, but also where I can see in the open timber up there coming to the power line. It's a major crossing right there. And I saw something, I could see the back of it, and I watched it for like 10 minutes. And it was moving very bizarrely. When I first saw it, I thought it was the back of a deer. I really did. And it was pretty foggy out. The sun was coming up, and it was trying to burn the fog off. I'm watching this thing, and I'm thinking, it's totally silent out. The leaves are wet. You can't hear nothing walking. And I wasn't seeing no deer around me. I'm trying to watch this. I'm looking around me, watching, make sure no deer are walking up and down the power line. And all of a sudden, this thing kind of turned a little bit. It come up on top of the hill, and it kind of got behind a row of trees that was kind of sort of lined up. There was gaps in it. I was watching it, and it started quartering towards me. And right at that point, just before it got behind the trees, I'm thinking I saw a tail on it, and I'm thinking mountain lion. But the tail didn't look right. It looked more like a coyote's tail. I mean, it's just, it was just hard to figure. I'm thinking deer, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing a tail on it, and it's like the tail don't look right. And it got behind these trees. I'm seeing pieces of it, and it's getting closer. It's kind of quartering towards me. And finally, when it comes out of them trees, that's when I seen the head on it. And this thing was stalking like a cat. And I turned the scope up to about 7, 8 power, something like that, real quick. And I was looking at it through the scope, and it had amber looking eyes, but it did not look like a cat. And I'm like, it was then I could really tell the color of it by then, because it was getting close enough I could see it. And it was a silverish gray looking color. And I'm like, this is no cat. What is it? But it's moving like a cat. It was stalking like a cat. And I just remember I'm just sitting there, trying to figure out what I'm seeing. It's big. I mean, this thing without the tail was probably 6, 7 foot long, from its tail, from its nose to its butt. And it was lanky looking. And it just kept creeping towards me. And I looked back through the scope, and I'm like, this thing's stalking me. Because it's coming at me. It's creeping. It's crawling like kind of creeping like a cat. And I kicked the safety off then, because I started getting a little nervous because it was coming in my direction. And it was probably when I kicked the safety off, I'm gonna guess it was 50 yards out. When this stuff's going on, I don't care what you guys they say the distances, all. No, I can't tell you all that. That's way out of your mind at that point. But by the time I kicked that safety off, I'm looking at the head on this thing, and I'm like, I'm not for sure what it is. It has a muzzle. It's not like a German Shepherd, a wolf, or a coyote or nothing. It's thicker. It's blockier looking. And it's not short like a cat would have. It was longer than that. But I'm looking at the top of its head. I'm seeing the eyes and the top of the nose and stuff. I couldn't see down low because it was creeping. Then next thing I know, I remember that my eyes freaked me out, and I thought, well, it was cat eyes. What I was thinking, amber colored eyes, mountain lions. This was my best guess. And all of a sudden, it acted like it started to take off, like it was running in my direction. Well, I shot. I know the crosshairs was on it. I don't know if I hit it or not, but it turned and ran. It instead of coming at me, it went and turned and made a right hand turn and shot off down the finger of the ridge and disappeared. I never saw it again. And I just kind of, okay, I'll just write this one off. Don't know what it was. Wolf, coyote, mountain lion, not for sure. My brain just wasn't not registering what this was. And nothing else happened the rest of that year. And I was like, okay, everything's back to normal again. The next year, archery season, late October, it was hot out. I don't know why, but we've been getting hot. It's been hot in October down here in archery season. I don't care much about hunting when it's hot out, because it's, you got to get that deer taken care of quick. But it was still hot, and it was getting too close to November. I wanted to get out and fill a few tags, and because we are ate up with deer. And this thing, I was sitting there, and there was about, I believe there were 7 does I was watching. It was in the power line feeding. I got a little mini food plot put in up there of clover, and a deer come out there and they feed. They're so used to seeing me up there in that tree stand, they'll watch me, but they'll still come out there and feed. They don't care until I shoot one, and then they'll take off. But all of a sudden, the bucks were already starting to chase the does. The younger bucks were kind of aggravating the does. And I started hearing something behind me, and it was making a lot of noise. And I'm like, oh, it's a big buck. Because I noticed the does before I heard that noise behind me started looking that way. They was throwing their heads up and they was looking. And I just thought, I have big bucks coming, So much racket was taking, the old buck, when he was chasing the does, he ain't worried about being quiet. And I kept hearing it. I thought, if that was a deer, it should have already been here. And I kept listening to it, and the does started getting real nervous. And I thought, well, it's got to be a buck, because the does are getting nervous, And next thing I know, I get to hearing it. and it is so loud. I'm like, whatever this is, it's right behind me, and it sounds like it's on two legs. I'm like, there's somebody walking up behind me, and the deer bolt and they go into the trees on the other side of the power line from me. They're over there stomping and blowing and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I got a hunter. It's either a hunter or there's a cow. I occasionally get a cow, and I don't know where the cows come from, but I've gotten a few cows on my trail cams because as much noise this thing was making, I knew it was something big. And I heard a limb snap right by my stand. I mean, I'm up 20 feet in a ladder stand, and I got the little blind around it, wrapped around the shooting rail, and the does was going nuts, and they just kept backing up and backing up, going further into the woods. And I knew whatever this was real close. I was afraid to move because it was a big buck. I didn't want to spook it. I wanted it to walk on past me into the power line where I could get a shot. And finally, I got tired of waiting because it stopped, and I knew it was right there around my stand somewhere off my left-hand side. And I slowly, when you're hunting, you don't jerk your head or nothing. I just slowly started turning my head, trying to turn my eyes as much as possible. And I could see something off to my left-hand side, and it was within about 10, 12 feet of my stand. And I'm like, what is? I could see some gray, and I didn't know what it was. And because of the skirt on the shooting rail, it was a two-man stand. I was sitting in the middle of it, and I kind of leaned over, and this was that thing. I know it was it. If it wasn't the same one, looked a lot like it. It looked the same to me. I figured it was the same one, but it was on two legs, and it was standing about 10 to 12 feet from my stand, and it was looking at those does across the power line in those trees over there. It was still over there carrying on. It was upright. It had to be at least 7 feet tall. From what I could gather after going back and looking at where it was standing at next to that tree, it was a good 7 foot. I'm over six. I'm 6 foot plus, and it was way tall. It was taller than me, so it could have been taller. I don't know, but I'm guessing I'll minimize it to somewhere around 7 foot. But it was watching them deer, and I'm leaning over, and I could see this thing. I could see drool coming out of the corner of its mouth, and it had the body of a wolf. It had that barrel, kind of thinner down at the waist, and it had its front feet up. But I guess people describe it like raccoon hands. That's a pretty good explanation or description of it. And it was like its fingers. It had almost like fingers, and it had about probably 3-inch black claws on it. And it was like its fingers or whatever you want to call them was twitching, almost like a piano player or something. I mean, it was twitching, and it was just drooling. Look at them deer. And next thing I knew, I was sitting there. I was praying to God. I kept praying to God. I said, God, please do not let this thing look up. Please do not let this thing look up and see me, because I'm sitting there with a crossbow. This thing, I don't know. I shot it with 308. You ain't gonna kill it. And I don't know how long it stood there. I really don't, because I was panicked. I mean, I was shaking. And the next thing I know, it leaped and went from two legs and went almost all the way across that opening, which is about 25 yards. And it landed 3/4 of the way down on all fours and bounced off into the woods. And it sounded like a bulldozer plowing through there. And I heard a doe starting to bleat, and then the woods went silent. So I'm assuming it got that doe. And I was shaking so bad, I wanted to get out of that stand and just get the hell out of there, and I couldn't do it. I had to sit there. I'm a cigarette smoker. The deer don't seem to mind it at all there. So I lit up a cigarette. I'm sitting there. I'm shaking the ashes off my cigarette, and I was like, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I saw. It looked like something from freaking Hollywood, like a werewolf. It's the best thing I can say. It looked like a freaking werewolf. And I smoked that cigarette, and I'm listening. I'm straining to listen. My heart's thumping so hard, and I when I kind of look back at it, what I understand, a lot of times I think when people say it goes silent, they don't realize when your heart's like my heart was beating so hard, I figured he could hear it. I mean, it was thumping. I could hear it. It's rushing all this blood up to your head. And it's like everything. Once he crashed into that brush and he was gone, he killed that deer, whatever it did. I couldn't tell you if it was a male or female, whatever it was. I mean, it was like I couldn't hear nothing. There was so much blood rushing to my head. It was like everything was silent. It was quiet. I couldn't hear no birds or nothing. And finally, I got the shaking had stopped enough. I climbed down. I booked it to my truck. I got to my truck, and I only parked like 75 yards from my stand, just over the edge of the hill, because I can't walk very far because had an accident years ago. And I got to my truck, and I started smelling something as I was walking up to it, and I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, man, what is that? Something stinking, And I'm trying to get my keys out, unlock hit the remote, unlock the damn truck, and get out. I'm wanting to go. I'm wanting to get out of here. And I get up there, I get the truck unlocked, open the back door, and I just throw my crossbow in the back seat, and I shut the door. And when I did, I noticed the bed of my truck on the driver's side. It was wet. I think that thing had come up there and urinated on my truck, because that's what the smell was. It smelled like hot urine. I mean, fresh, hot, stinking urine. And by this time, the sun was down. And at this point, I didn't live about 8 minutes from there. I mean, I was very close there. I could walk out my front door, get in my truck, and be in my stand in 10 minutes from there. But that smell was so bad. I mean, it was so close to town. I thought, man, I'm going to go to town. I'm taking my truck to the car wash, get rid of this smell. I don't even want to try to wash this off at my house with the garden hose. It needs to go to the pressure washer to take it to it. And I was shaking so bad I couldn't wash my truck. I had to go through the automatic wash. But that's how bad it smelled. And I went home. I didn't sleep. I mean, I think I went 2 days. I may have taken a 15, 20-minute nap. Back then I had all kinds of really big caliber rifles. I kept a Browning Bar 300 Winchester Magnum loaded, and I carried it around the house with me. I had a 44 Smith & Wesson pistol. I kept it stuck in my waistline. I mean, if I was walking out, I kept the blinds closed. I mean, I freaked out for a few days. I mean, because this stuff ain't supposed to be real. It ain't supposed to be real. I mean, it's just your brain goes into overload. And that's all I can really say about that. I mean, uh, and I moved away from there, and I was glad I did. Right after that occurrence, I'd say within about 6 months, I'd moved back east of there about a little over an hour, just out of the Ozarks. And I still hunt that farm to this day, but I won't go in before daylight. I mean, it's got to be light enough where I can see around me before I'll walk to my stand. And it's a very short walk. It's 75 yards or less. And I do not go into the woods. I stay strictly in the power line to get to my stand or to my turkey blind. I do not go off into the woods looking around for sign. I don't have to. I got a sweet spot there. I don't go out there mess around. It's too thick. And that's kind of the spooky part about the power line. I mean, you're walking up there, it's so thick on both sides where I park at. From there almost to my stand, there's honeysuckle. You can't see into that stuff. So I want it to be light enough to see. When I come down, usually I will light it up when I come out of there. If I come out after dark, but coming in the mornings, I mean, no, I won't do it. I mean, I don't like to use the light in the morning. It seems to spook the deer. So I don't do that. But at night, if I sit there until after dark, because I'm letting deer, drift away. Sometimes I'll take I keep a water bottle with me. I'll rattle that water bottle. It'll speak them off so I can get out of the stand, because that's a noise they don't understand. That way they don't associate it with me. They'll just leave and they'll run off and stay out there 75, 80 yards or so. I get down and leave. They'll come right back out there, 5, 10 minutes after I climb out of my stand. The trail cam's getting pictures again. But none of that's ever got on the camera. And then nothing really happened after that for a long time. I mean, until last deer season. And I decided that I was going to take some extra does for the meat that last season. The economy's bad. Meat, beef so high. I thought I eat a lot of deer meat anyway. I love it. And I thought I'm going to kill a few extra deer this year. I didn't get to bow hunt much because I had a lot going on. I didn't get to bow hunt. But a few days, I'm missing that part. And go back to that. When we talk about that thing, that shakes me up. The Bigfoot doesn't shake me up like this, but that thing does. But I did get to hunt a few days before the gun season. It was last year was typical. It was hot again, all the way up to almost gun season. I went out. I thought I'm just going to take a doe. I'm going to kill a doe or two and call it good, and then gun hunt and fill some more tags. And I shot a big doe. Doe walked out. I shot her. She ran into the trees and ran parallel to the power line away from me. I knew I made a good hit on her. Picked up my arrow. I mean, it was covered, and you can always tell the arrow's covered with blood. You got the bubbles in it. You got a good hit. And the blood trail was like it was dumped out of a 5-gallon bucket. Just walked and followed the poured out trail. And I followed this, got up here. I found the spot where the doe should have been. The ground was tore up. I mean, you can see what it did, the death kick, tore up the ground, area size with truck hood, full of blood. This deer was bled out. The deer was gone. The blood stopped there at that spot. There was no specks. I spent 30 minutes I even got down on my hands and knees, was crawling around and looking for blood. The deer was gone. And that had me bum fuzzling. I've been having problems with my trail cams that year. I thought somebody was messing with me. I thought they was pulling my SD cards out and deleting things because I wasn't seeing nothing. There'd be big blank gaps on them, and that was not normal for up there. Well, a few weeks later, come rifle season, the first 3 or 4 days of the season, I'll strictly buck hunt. I'm looking for a trophy because I'll see deer all season. To kill a few does ain't no big deal. And didn't see what I'm seeing a lot of young bucks. I wasn't seeing nothing I really wanted to take. There's a lot of potential, younger bucks around. I wanted to let grow up. I let them grow up. I let them get mature before I harvest a buck. But I was thinking it was probably either a Wednesday or a Thursday of that gun season last November. A doe came out, and she was an older doe. She was one of the ones that I've been watching on trail cam for a long time. I know this deer because she's got a notch. I believe it was her right ear, like she caught her on barbed wire, and he had a big old split in it. And she had a little yearling with her. I shot them both. They ran across the power line into the trees, 20 yards or so. And I use a deer hoist, and I got an extra long cable on mine so I can stretch it out. So I thought, well, I'm going to get the truck, and I'll back it up to the tree line, and I'll drag them over to where I can get them with my cable and winch them into the truck and load them. And I got my truck up there, pulled up there, backed up to the tree line as far as I could get. And I went out, didn't take a gun with me, went out and grabbed the big doe by the hind legs. I didn't have to probably drag her 15 yards, to hook the cable to her, to winch her on in. And I was dragging her back towards the truck, and I heard this noise, and it did not sound normal in the woods. It sounded like wet feet slapping concrete is the best way I can describe it. And what it is, the power line there, right there in front of my stand where the deer are always feeding at, it's real hard packed dirt and rock. And I'm guessing what I heard was its feet slapping on that when it come through there. But it came down. These two deer were only probably 12 to 15 yards apart where they dropped at. The little one had dropped closer to the tree line, and I was almost even with it. I was just started dragging that big doe, and I heard that noise, and I looked up over my shoulder, and this Bigfoot came across. It was done across the power line. it came by within, I know it came within 15 feet of me and grabbed that little doe and just kept going. And it had to have been every bit of 7 foot tall. And this thing, saying it was 4 foot across the shoulders, I'd say it was more than that. It was broad, it was thick. Don't think it really had a really conical head to it. It had hair on its face. It had a finer hair on its face. I got a good look at it for the few seconds it was so close. But it, it was a dark brown to almost a black color. I mean, it looked more black, like a dull black, but it could have been a dark brown. But and you could see the hair on its arms hanging down to typical, 3, 4, 5 inches of hair hanging off, the forearm around the elbow as it came through. And it come through, snatched that deer and was gone. And I was just in shock. I'm like, what? It happened so quick, and when I really come to my senses of it, realizing what just happened, I mean, I took off dragging that deer as fast as I could. I didn't have to drag it another 10, 15 feet, and I got it up there where I had my cable stretched out. I got the cable hooked around that doe's neck, and I cranked it up to the truck, loaded it, and I went home. I was going to go home, and I thought, I got pictures. It ran right in front of my trail cameras. Got pictures because I thought somebody been messing with my trail camera, so I set a second one up behind the first one that was hidden. So as I got turned around, was getting ready to leave, I jumped out and pulled the SD cards on both them cameras. Got home thinking, I got this on camera. I got this on camera. No, both of them, same time stamp, exact minute. Both of them's turned up into the treetops. Just for that, but they were not like that when I went to them and pulled the cards. They were pointing in their normal direction. But the last pictures taken on them, you see me drive by the cameras, in front of the cameras, to park my truck to go get the deer. And then the last pictures on there are pointed up into the treetops. And that's pretty much the last experience I've had. Now, like I said, that was last year. And really, I'm not no researcher. I don't go out looking for tracks of these things. I don't want to see them anymore. I mean, I really would rather not see them. But it is what it is. It don't seem to matter where you're at. If you're anywhere around the Mark Twain, there's a good chance you're going to see this stuff. But it's whether you're going to open up your mind to believe you saw what you actually saw.
Yeah, that's some interesting encounters, and I'm sure they have you rattled, and still to this day you think about them constantly.
Oh yeah, I'm starting to stutter. it, it
No, you're fine. Take your
the
time.
big the Bigfoot. That was the only time I got a little bit shook up seeing one because that was so close. But I didn't get rattled on that until after the fact. Now the dog man, whatever you want to call that thing, that I can tell you a little more about that. I'll tell you about the neighbors down there where I pull into this place is right next. It wraps around this a neighbor's place. They got like a couple acres there that cuts into the farm there. And I drive actually right around their property line to go up there. And where I pull in is right next to their driveway, next to where they park. And I was kind of quizzing them. They was from the city, they was from up St. Louis area. They moved down there to live the country life. And I got to question them one day. They always stopped me and talk. They're real friendly. They keep an eye on the place. A friend of mine owns this place. We're lifetime. We've been friends since we was knee high. I mean, and it was his parents' old place, and none of the family lives around there. So I've been taking care of the place, keeping the posted signs up, keeping the gates locked, keeping gates up, keeping them locked. So everybody down there knows me. They don't even know the owners. They ain't seen the owners in probably 15, 20 years because they very seldom come down. But I was talking to the neighbors down there one day, and I asked them, I said, y'all seen anything? It's hard to just come out and ask them. I just ask them, you see anything strange or unusual around here? And they was like, no, not really. I said, you hear anything out of the ordinary? Because I've never heard no vocalizations or nothing. And the guy's wife said, well, we got growling owls down here. And I was like, I kind of looked at her funny. I was like, what do you mean growling owls? And, it'd be hard for me to imitate the way she'd done it, but she said they would go, and I said, really? And where are you hearing this at? Right in the direction of where I hunt. And they was hearing them regular. And I said, I'll tell you now, there's a possibility if you're hearing this stuff, you're going to see some things you're not going to believe what you're going to see. And her husband started laughing. He said, why, is the boogeyman out there? I said, no, there's some cryptids out there. And he said he didn't even know what a cryptid was. I said, nah, there's a few Bigfoot that pass through up here. And I said, there's a wolf thing that's running around here too. And he thought it was funny because he's got these big old dogs. I think they're Callahoolas, but they're mixed with something. And they're extra big. They're bigger than regular Callahoolas, but they're marked up like Callahoolas. These big dogs. These are 100 pounds plus dogs. And he's like, my dogs will kill anything that comes up here. Not too long after that, I'm going to say 3 or 4 months after that, he called me. And I thought it was unusual. He called me that late. I thought maybe somebody was spotlighting up on the farm or something. He was going to tell me about it. But he asked me, he said, there's a story going around that somebody raised hybrid wolves down here and they died and the wolves got loose. He said, have you ever heard that story? And I said, no. I said, no. And I said, have you asked any of the neighbors around there? And he said, no, none of them's ever heard it. Now, he wouldn't go into detail who had told him that. He said, well, he said, up on the hill before you turn off onto the gravel, off the main gravel onto the side gravel to come down here, he said, to the house, he said, I saw a big wolf. He said, it was big. He said, timber wolves can't get this big. He said, that thing, he said, tail and all, he said, it had been 9, 10 foot long. He said, it was huge. He said, it come across the gravel road in front of him. He said, that thing was stretching out. He said, it only touched the gravel road once. He said it leapt into the road, out of the road, into the trees, and there was a little right of way next to the gravel road there, next to a fence road. It was open. They'd bush hogged out, and he watched it go across that right of way into the woods and just vanish. And he said it was humongous. I said, well, did it look like a big wolf? I mean, would you describe it as a wolf? And he said, yeah. And now you can't get him to even talk about it. He won't talk about none of this stuff now. And I found that pretty interesting. But one thing I did hear this past spring turkey season, I heard my first wood knock. And where this came from, there's no houses for miles. So there's one loud wood knock. It sounded like a Louisville slugger slapping a tree. I mean, it was loud. And that got my attention. I started watching in that direction. And actually, that came from the direction where them first two I'd seen there had walked up in there on top of this, going towards the top of this ridge. And, like I said, I'm no researcher. I don't look for tracks. I don't, I have in the past, went looking with my friend, ride around the truck. That's one thing. But as far as going out in the woods, no, I'm not about that. I don't want to go looking for them. I don't want to. If you go looking for something, you're going to find it. And I seem to run into it enough without even trying, if you know what I mean. So I think I've covered the majority of it. I know there's more, but that'd be a bunch of backtracking and filling in gaps and all that. There's just a lot. I mean, but don't realize the Ozarks is a dangerous place, and it's getting more and more dangerous because I talked to a few other people that was really embarrassed, to even bring up what they saw, but they were seeing the same things I'm seeing. So it's not uncommon anymore. People are really seeing it, and they're starting to talk a little bit about it. Whereas used to, nobody would talk about it. You just, oh, you saw a booger, ain't no big deal, just a booger or whatever. But the sightings are getting more and more common over there along Current River. I've heard of tubers seeing Bigfoot along Current River when they was tubing just before dark. People camping out on the river saying they've seen a wolf-like creature up there. there's just a lot of on up in that area, along my area down there.
Yeah, that's frightening. And you say this is close to David from the Killing Fields?
Yeah, my friend's up there now. His farm, his cattle ranch up there. It's not far from up there. He said he is southeast of Owl's Bend. That's the closest I can tell you. I will tell you because I want to respect his privacy on that. He just don't want involved in it. And he's told me some stories. He said that one night he was coming in. I think if I remember correctly, I don't remember if it was when the first video on that come out or the second video come out on that. He said that there was black SUVs running around up there. He goes down a Forest Service road actually to get to his farm. And he said they was up there on this ridge and they stopped him. He said there was black SUVs and people dressed in like SWAT uniforms. And they stopped him, wanted to know what he was doing there and all that. And he was like, I live down here. This is my farm up there. And they said, oh, you're so and so. And he said, yeah. And they said, okay. And he asked them what they was doing there. They wouldn't answer his questions. They told him he needed to just go on home. After that happening, I mean, he was like, no. He said, I don't need this. He said, I don't want this. I don't want this coming around me.
Yeah. And what does he think those people were up to? Were they hunting the cryptids?
He said he believed that's what they was doing. He thought that those videos had triggered this off, and he thought that's maybe why they was in that area. Because this wasn't too. I'm trying. I ain't for sure when those videos came out. To tell you the truth, I mean, there's so much, and I have to sit down and just start writing things down and going back and digging to figure out all these dates and the years and everything because there's just so much. But he had a dogman problem up there for one spring, and right after this I think it happened right after. No, it was right before he ran into these black SUVs. He said they was government tags on there. They, when you grow up in the Ozarks, government tags when you see them. They're a white tag. It's a solid white tag with black lettering. I mean, they stand out. And he said all these SUVs had tinted windows. In Missouri, you can't have your windshield and your front two side windows tinted like that dark. And he said these were tinted. You couldn't see if there was anybody in them or not with the headlights on them. But he had a problem with a dog man up there, and I did go up there. He was telling me, he said, I got to kill this thing. I've lost 10 calves. This I think I did tell you this story earlier, and I forgot about this one, but this was later on, and after you know going up there and seeing the Bigfoot he had on his property, seeing an occasional one up here and there. But he said he'd lost 10 calves, and he said my insurance ain't wanting to pay out on all these calves, and they were wanting him to call in the Department of Game and Fish because he had a predator problem. And he said, I know what it is. He said, because me and him have been talking, and I told him about my experience with that wolf looking thing, that werewolf looking thing. And he said, I've got a black one. He said, it's huge. He said, I know that's what's killing my calves. And he said, there ain't a Bigfoot on the place, and there ain't been one since this thing showed up. And I believe that was the last time I went up there. And we went riding around, and sure enough, we could see it. And this this thing was, I think it was probably as tall as the biggest squatch I've ever seen up there. And this thing, I got a good look at it. He, we drove around and wasn't seeing that, and we pulled into this one field, and this one's kind of isolated, a smaller pasture, about 20, 30 acres, and it was it was into the woods. And we pulled in just out of the tree line into the field and parked. And he doesn't smoke, and I do. I stepped out of the truck and lit a cigarette. And he said, oh, I don't see it. He said, this is usually a good spot. One of the spots I see it regularly. And I'm sitting there standing in the doorway of the truck smoking a cigarette. And I'm looking around. I looked off to my right, and about 50 yards away, I saw it. It was standing there next to a white oak, and it was huge. I mean, mass wise, it was not. It was long and lanky, just like what I'd seen before. But this thing was much taller, much taller. How much I couldn't tell you. And it scared the crap out of me. I mean, because it just looked up, after the experience I had, I saw it, and it's like, dude, I jumped in the truck, slammed the door, said, "Go, start truck, go now." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "It's right there." I said, "Get the hell out of here, get out of here." I said, "Go." And he said, "We're going to kill it." I said, "You're going to go right now." And he fired the truck up, and he whipped it around, and we left. It just stood there and watched us the whole time. It never made a move. It just shocked me when I turned around. This thing, you could tell it was jet black. It was jet black. It was standing up, upright. It was hunchbacked. You could see the hump on the back of it because it was looking around. It was looking around the field. It looked and it looked back and just stare at us. And when I first saw it, I had just lit that cigarette. I don't know. I had to drop it. I don't even remember what happened to my cigarette. I mean, I was so scared. I jumped in the truck, but it looked like it had black eyes. I mean, like a black eyed child or something. I mean, it looked evil. And it scared me so bad. I drove in the truck. You get me out of here. He was wanting to kill it. And I'm like, no, go. It was too, I don't know if you could kill one of them things or not. If a 308 doesn't do anything, and yeah, we was armed to the teeth. We had a Marlin 45-70, and I had a Browning Bar 300 Winchester Magnum in the truck. I wasn't gonna shoot it. There was no way. Being that close, If I was shot at it long range at 100 yards across the field, I'd have took the shot. Being that close, no way. That thing would have been on us before. We'd have pissed it off. That's all we'd have done. And we left, and he was upset because he wanted to kill it. And actually, the 45-70 was mine too. I brought it up there for him to keep with him because all he had was a 30-06. He wanted something that was some thump to it, and he still got that gun. He ended up buying it off of me, but it disappeared. I mean, it as quick as it showed up and terrorized him, it was gone. And he said as soon as he started seeing a Bigfoot here and there on his place, he said it was gone. He didn't have no more calves missing. He said he never lost more than one calf a year, you know, at worst, due to predators until that thing come along. And it was just there for a matter of like 2 or 3 months, and it wreaked havoc on him. It traumatized him. It really did. He got to where now if he goes out to feed, he goes out to feed in the middle of the day. He does not go out early in the morning. He does not go out in the evening. He will not go out and sit in a deer stand. He will drive around and park in his truck and sit in the fields, and that's how he deer hunts now. It's messed him up that bad. I mean, I can understand it. He lives in it. He lives with it. I don't have to now. I mean, I don't live close to that. I moved far enough away, but I, I can understand his train of thought. Oh, I was just thinking. I bought a place, bought some land down. It's in the Ozarks. It's just across the Missouri line down by Lake Norfolk. And this is an interesting little deal. I got two stories on this actually. Me and my wife, this was our getaway place. We're gonna build a house down there sooner or later. It's very isolated. I mean, your closest neighbor's a mile and a half away, and you're like 10 minutes from a couple different boat ramps on the lake. It's isolated, no neighbors. It's quiet. It's peaceful. And I had a fifth wheel camper up there we was using for a cabin, and we used to go up there and stay a lot just to get away from the house, just to get away. It was our getaway place until we decided how we was going to build the road, make the nice driveway in, where we was going to put our house and all this. We just, it was just our kind of a hangout place until we figured out what we was going to do, how we was going to lay everything out. And one morning, I'll back up just a little bit. The fall before, I was deer hunting there, and I was sitting in a ground blind, and I heard elk noises. There's no elk there. There is elk a county or two away, very limited, but there's none where I'm at. It's cattle country basically where I'm at, cattle and just woods. And it was what I was hearing was was what I call a very poor attempt of a cow elk. It didn't sound right. It didn't sit well with me, but it was going away from me. So I didn't give it much thought. I just thought it was kind of funny, you know. And that was their gun season runs. It starts when Missouri's does, and they run 2 more weeks after Missouri's does. So I hunt up here for the first week or so. Then I go down there for the last 2 weeks. That's when that transpired. The next spring we was up there's not really no turkey population down there where I'm at. They said that ice storm down there took them out. But we was down there staying. We'd been gone there for a couple months, and we decided to go back down there and get away for a little while, go down there, stay for a few weeks. And one morning we was in bed asleep, and it was about the sun that was just getting up, coming up over the trees. Something slapped the camper. Now, I had a 31-foot fifth wheel camper. Something slapped it so hard twice. When I opened my eyes, I looked at the window, you know, and the bedroom's up in the fifth wheel part, and that's such real high off the ground. The blinds were shaking. And I'm like, okay, I didn't dream that. What was it? And you know, I got startled. You know, it just woke me up. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking at the window, and I'm seeing the blinds shaking. And then when the sun comes up over the trees there, it's kind of hitting that window. And something walked in front of that window and almost blocked it out. All I could see was mostly a head and the top part of shoulders. It was sideways. I don't know if it turned and I tried to look into the window or if it was turned looking away from the window. I don't know. But I reached over. You know, I'm typical, you know, country boy. I mean, I had an AR sitting there. I had a 357 Magnum laying there. I grabbed my pistol. I had it pointed right at that window, and I'm like, if it, you know, you trying to come in, you're going to get it. And it just walked off. Now, I don't know if you realize how high that window is on a fifth wheel. But walk up to a fifth wheel camper and imagine that window up there, and the top line of that shoulder was was over halfway, almost halfway up into that window. You could see the head perfect, and it was a conical. It looked like it was a conical shaped head. A man, I could walk up to that window and you can't see me. Like I said, and I'm a little over 6 foot tall. You can't see me. And plus, we had a tote sitting in front of it too, a clear tote. But it was the upper part of that window. It filled it. It filled it. And I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, "Well, great." She said, "We get to have Bigfoot down here too." And she believes she's had an encounter when she was young, and so she knows they're real. And she said, "Well, why didn't you wake me up?" I said, "I was too damn scared to wake you up because I didn't know what it was fixed to do. I didn't know if it was fixed to rip the side of the camper off and come in or what it was going to do." But it was standing at that window. After that, I took that 1-inch foam board and put it up against the window, and I built a wooden frame, and we put wallpaper on it and screwed it to the wall so you can't see out those windows now. So I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that crap no more. I mean, I just seem sneak around in the camper and be peeking out rather than be stuck laying right there in bed. I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, it was 4 or 5 feet from my feet. I mean, there was no way I could have got out of that bed and moved without it knowing it. It would have hurt it. But right after that, see, no, about a year or so went by. My wife her health had really went south, and she'd been in and out of the hospital, and almost a year and a half went by. We had not been down there, and a friend of mine. I won't get into why we went down there, but I wanted to go down there and get a generator. I had some other stuff down there. A friend of mine was wanting to get it. He's wanting to buy off of me, and we went down there, and a tree limb had went through the roof of my camper, and it was just waterlogged. I mean, it was told. I couldn't believe it. And so we was loading everything up, and he stops me. We're loading. I mean, it's heat of summer. I mean, it was in August, 1st of August. So it was hot. I mean, it was really hot. No wind blowing. I mean, it was just smoking hot out. And he's no hunter. I mean, he's from the flatlands. I mean, he don't hunt. He don't really know nothing about it, but he knows what turkeys sound like. And he was like, "Hey," he said, "I'm hearing a turkey. Come here." And I went out there and was listening. I said, "We listened to it for a minute." I said, "There ain't no turkey." He said, "What is it?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Ain't turkey." I said, "I've never seen a turkey, never heard of turkey up here." I said, "We've been coming down here for 5 years. Never seen a turkey within 5 miles of here." And he said, "Well, call back to it." Well, I got some record. I got an app on my phone, turkey. So I played a hen yelping to it, and it answered back. It answered back that it was not a turkey. It was way too deep. It was way too loud. And I told him, I said, "I'll tell you what I think it is." He said, and now see, he's a believer. He believes in it. He's open minded. He knows a lot of what goes on in this world. He's one of those people that's open minded. He don't doubt what somebody says. If they're a credible person. And I told him, I said, "I think that's a squatch." And we stood there probably for 20 minutes, and it finally just shut up. And every time, last few times we heard it, it was getting further and further away. And that would have been off to the left hand side of the camper, back behind it at an angle at a 45 or so, going away from us. And we went to getting furniture out, what we could salvage out of the camper, was loading it up. And I stepped out on the porch. I didn't have my glasses on. I'm seeing distance clearly. I got to have my glasses on. And I looked over into the corner of my property through the trees there, and I could see a shadow and outline over there. And he come walking out the camper and said, "Hey," I said, "there's something right over there." And he he's one of these. He took off. He said, "I'll go there and check it out." I said, "Dude, don't do it." I said, "Don't walk towards it." I said, "That's an act of aggression." He said, "I want to see it." And he got off the porch. I had a porch built up, big old deck built up in front of my camper there. And he jumped off the deck, and he started easing that way. And I saw some movement. He got about halfway to it. And I kept telling him, "Dude, you're only covering seed ticks out there." I said, "You shouldn't do it." I said, "Leave it alone." And it started moving off. He could hear it walking. He said it was crushing. He said some big sticks. He said there's some big snaps. I was hearing it too, but I was like, I ran to the truck and grabbed my pistol, because I was like, "This ain't good. You don't go try to approach them like that." I mean, in my opinion, it's a wild animal. You don't just try to approach him. And he wasn't armed or nothing, but he was excited because he caught a glimpse of it, and he could hear it walking. And he said it was bipedal. It was bipedal. He said it was walking on two legs. And he said there's no way. He said as loud as them dead limbs and stuff was snapping. He said no man could have done that. So he was excited. He thought that was really something. I'm like, "Dude, really, I don't want to experience this no more. I don't want to." I said, "I don't look for it. I sure ain't gonna run at one." I said, "That's a wrong thing to do." And he was like, he was all excited about it. And I mean, some of the people that we do talk about with it, he told them about it, and he was just real excited. And they just kind of look at him like he's crazy, like, "Dude, you don't do that." But he's not no outdoors person, so he could have made a fatal mistake there. I mean, it could have turned ugly. I mean, who knows? But that was something else I didn't think about, and it just popped into my head. But I pretty much covered probably 99% of everything right there.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for sharing all that. And do you think that somehow this is connected to you, like maybe you're marked or tagged by these creatures, or do you think it's solely the Ozarks?
I honestly don't know why. I I've talked to a few. Like I said, I talked to a person that was real heavily into the paranormal, and they got a little group over there at Cape. They go around doing that ghost stuff. I'm not about that stuff. That does not interest me. I've had enough weird paranormal stuff happen to me. I don't. That's something I really don't touch. But he told me the reason why all these things happen to me is because I'm so open minded. I'm not. He said the way your brain works, you're not like everybody else. When you see something, your brain is open to it, but you're trying to understand what it is. You're not one to write it off, I guess you'd say. It's how I explain it. I'm just open minded. And I kind of am, but towards a lot of things, if somebody says they saw something, I believe it. I know there's other things out there. I've heard stories of other things people have seen out there. Uh, don't really want to see them, but when you're talking to somebody in person, you can tell. You can tell when they've seen something and they just couldn't, they're having a hard time describing it. You can tell by their mannerism. Uh, they saw something. And I ain't gonna bash nobody. I ain't gonna harass nobody, for saying or laugh at nobody because they saw something, because I've had too much. I've had way more than my fair share. Actually know a couple other people said way more than I have. And I ain't gonna tell their stories. They wouldn't probably never do what I've just done.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And do you think there's a connection between the paranormal experiences that you had and these cryptid encounters?
That's something I really highly question.
Mm.
I'm not for sure. I'm not ruling that out because the house I live in now, I guess you could say, we've had some strange things happen here. We've had to rebuke a few things here, if you know what I mean. It's just there's been some really weird things. When I've lived here for over 8 years now, and it's been really calm for the last year and a half. I mean, nothing weird happened, but we've taken the proper channels on that. But my friend that is into the paranormal stuff from over by Cape Girardeau, he told me, he said, move. When I told him some of the things that's happened, he said, move. And I'm in the process of remodeling right now. I'm fixing to put this place up for sale. And I'm going to move back out into the Ozarks, I guess, where I think in reality, I'd rather deal with the cryptids than the paranormal.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And have you ever seen a UFO or an alien?
Alien, no.
Mm.
Saw a UFO one time, probably back in 80, is 81 or 82. Just up by Grandin, Missouri. It was late one night. We was all out running around. A buddy of mine had just got a Cobra Mustang too. And, that was a bad muscle car back in the day. And we was headed up we was just south of Grandin. And it was late at night, early morning, whatever you want to call it. And the car was full. There was like five of us in there. And all of a sudden, on the driver's side, there was this, I don't know what, you couldn't tell the shape, but it had lights on it. And it was traveling parallel to us over these fields. And it was just right next to the highway. It was probably 70, 80 yards from us. And it was traveling parallel to us. And I looked over, he's running 100 mile an hour, and this thing's right with us. And I told him, I said, punch it and see what happens. We thought it was some kind of government experimental aircraft or something, is what we really thought at first. And he floors it. And we're up to 120. This thing's keeping up with us. And all of a sudden, it zipped out in front of it passes, and it went from being beside us to in front of us over the highway, and then this shot off. And it had yellow, blue, and red lights on it. That's all I really remember of it. It was so big. I don't know if we could actually see all of it from it being in the car, because we was seeing like the lower half of it until it got in front of us, and it was just so many lights on there. But couldn't tell you what it was. But they do have craft now that can do that. There's military stuff that's came out that can do stuff like that. I don't know if it was a UFO. I don't know. We still joke around about that when I get around those guys, because it was a UFO, but what it was, we don't know.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, going back to the current river area, whenever I was investigating the killing fields at David's farm, he would always find animals dead in his fields, and he was thinking it was Bigfoot because he's heard whoops, he's heard tree knocks, and just had strange experiences on the property. Do you think by chance that it could have been a dogman?
Oh, absolutely. In my opinion, I would say yes. Falling back to that, that is something he started finding in certain little pockets of these fields. Because he a lot of times he drives his fields and runs his fences a lot, you know, because he's probably running well over 200 head of cattle. So he's always checking fences and stuff. And he was finding wild hogs, deer, turkey feathers, and there'd be like little piles here and there. I forgot about that. But yeah, he was finding that, and that was when this stuff started happening. When the calves started disappearing, because he never found a trace of them calves. The calves were gone. I mean, usually when one disappeared, he'd find a carcass somewhere, and he never found a carcass from none of them calves. But he said somewhere in the time when that started happening, he said that he was finding dead wildlife up there, and he said it'd been ripped up. He said didn't tell, you know, plus scavengers had already been into it. He thought. I never saw none of it. I never saw, you know, we never looked at nothing like that when I was up there. But he said there was 2 or 3 places that was like that. That was piled up. He'd never give a real good description, but what he told me what was in it though. He said there he saw turkey feathers, dead wild hog, and deer. And he said whatever had killed them was something that was big.
Yeah. So, did your friend ever mention seeing any lights, any orbs, anything like that during the
No,
Bigfoot activity?
no,
Okay.
no. I've been up there a lot of times at night. Been up there a lot of times when I went up there, and I just stayed up there until, you know, midnight, 1 o'clock before I'd head home. And I've never seen no orbs or nothing up there. And myself, I've never seen orbs. Everybody talks about that, and I'm sure if he had seen something like that, he would mention it. Because he dives into this. He dives into all these rabbit holes too. Now, I mean, we'll talk at least every 2 or 3 months. I mean, when we get on the phone, we'll talk for 3 or 4 hours. And he's never mentioned anything like it. No UFOs, no orbs, no funny lights. He's never mentioned any of that. So I've never brought it up, though. That's something I will ask him next time I talk to him. But I'm pretty sure he would have mentioned it.
Yeah, you'll have to talk to him and see what he says. I'm curious to see if he's witnessed any of these lights, but there's a chance that he's never seen them before, and I just wonder how many encounters this guy has because you went there a couple times or spent some time there, and you've had a handful of encounters, so I'm sure he's got quite a few.
Well, since I ain't giving up his exact location or his name,
Hmm.
I will give up this story of what he told me after that encounter with that, whatever you want to call that thing, that werewolf, dog man, whatever you want to call it. I've heard they're starting to call them walking wolves now. I don't know. People that see them now is calling them walking wolves. That's something that's popped up over the last 3 or 4 years down here. And he's kind of calling them that too. But he said I left him that Marlin 4570 in a box of shells. And they were buffalo bore caliber. The buffalo, they call them, big box of buffalo bore calibers shells. That's 425 grain or something, 400 grain. That was a big bullet. And he kept that with him when he was running his cattle. And this is going to get kind of crazy right here. And because I know the guy was telling me the truth because he was shook up when he was telling me. He called me that night and he said, "Man," he said, you got time to talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said something happened. He said, "I don't know what's going to happen." And he just kept, he was rattled. I mean, he was rattled bad. And I knew something had happened. And I'm like, "Okay, man, just what happened? What'd you do?" He said, "Well," he said, "I had to take care of some business in town." And he said, "And by the time I got home that afternoon, it was late." He said, "And by the time I got feed loaded up," he said, "it was getting close to dark." And he said, "I had to feed." He said, "And I went out and fed." And he said, "You know that field where we saw that at?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, through the trees before you come into that field, the big field behind it. He said, that real big field. I said, yeah, I know the one you're talking about. He said, well, you know where the food troughs are there. I said, yeah, they're in that back third of the corner of that field, just where that road runs through to that little field. He said, well, he said, the cows, he said, I couldn't find the cows. He said, this was the last spot I hit. He said, no cows had come to the troughs. He said, I've seen a few at a distance. He said, but he said, I couldn't see where they was at. And he said, the sun was setting at this point, and he was getting nervous. He said, ain't seeing he's got hundreds of head of cattle, and he wasn't seeing none of them. When he come out to feed, they hear his truck. Cattle, when they hear the guy that feeds them every day, they come to that truck, and they weren't doing it that day. And he said he had just dumped the last bag of sweet feed in that trough. And he said he'd stepped back and got to the truck. He opened the door, and he said he turned around. He said he saw it. He said it was walking towards him. I said, was it on all four or on two legs or what? He said, it was on all four. He said, I said, well, what'd you do? And he really hesitated for a minute. And I knew right then what he'd done. He shot it. And he said, I grabbed the marlin out of the truck. And he said, by this time, he said it was up on two legs. He said it was walking towards me. He said, I think it was 40, 50 yards. He said it could have been 75. He said, I don't know. He said, that thing is big. He said, I pulled down center mass on it and shot it. He said, it went down on all fours and was gone. He said, in a matter of like 3 seconds. He said, it turned around and took off. And that was the last time he had any issues there. I don't think he killed it. He said, because I went up the next day, and he wanted me to blood trail because he knew I could blood trail because I was more of a serious deer hunter than he was. He just kind of one of those guys that just enjoys going out there and sitting, and if he kills a deer, fine. If he don't, fine. He ain't out there to kill a monster buck or nothing. But he said, come up. He said, just come up. And I said, I'll be up in the morning. I'll be up there after daylight. And I got up the next morning about 4 o'clock and drove up there and got up there about daylight. And his wife made us breakfast and everything. And he was telling me about it. I mean, he was excited. He was talking night and nothing. He said, I shot it. He said, dude, he said, Jimmy, I shot it. He said, it didn't affect it. He said, it spun around, hit all fours, and took off. He said, it didn't do nothing. He said, I said, did you look for blood or not? He said, hell no. He said, I got in the truck and left. He said, I jumped in the truck and floored it. He said, I spun out of there. And he said, I went to the house. Now, his house, he has an 8-foot chain link fence that covers an acre around his house. And it's got barbed wire on top, and it is electrified. He's got strands of electric fencing all through that. That's how bad it shook him up. So I don't know if you can somebody could probably get on Google Earth and find him, but I'm telling you right now, you don't want to mess with this guy because he's one of those kind. He'll shoot before and ask questions later. He don't want nobody on his property. And me and him just hit it off, and that was the only reason why he lets me come out. As far as I know, nobody else has ever been up there to see what I've seen up there. But he said he did shoot it. He shot it with a 45-70 and did not kill it. And we went out there and looked. There was no hair. I found the casing. So I know exactly you could see where the truck spun out at. So it was real easy. I found the casing. There was no blood. There was no hair. And I said, you sure you hit it? He said, I know I hit it. And like he said, that was the last issue he's had with that. He said, next thing he knew, he said, within a month, you start seeing a Bigfoot or two around. He said, everything calmed back down. No dead animals around. And that's something else. He's never heard no vocalizations, but I don't know if he's ever actually listened for them. That's something else I'd really like to ask him about, is the vocalizations, because I've never heard any real true vocalizations. I've heard the mimic sounds, and the neighbor to the place I hunt talking about those growling owls. It rang a bell with me because I've heard that up there at that farm. I actually have heard that on the Mark Twain way up north up there, getting probably within about 30, 45 minutes of probably where you was at, hunting along Current River, turkey hunting in the mornings. Get the owls to hooting, and you hear one that beats so, it sounds like a 500-pound owl. It don't the tail end of it is not an owl. It makes a noise, a deep guttural sound towards the end of it when it does it. It's the best way I can describe it. But back then, I didn't know what it was. But when she was telling me that, it was like, yeah, I know what that is now. It rings bells. I mean, so I've heard vocalizations. I guess I didn't put two and two together at the time. And now I listen. I'm watching all the time. But like I said, that a tree knock, that's the first time I ever heard a tree knock. And as far as I know, I've never heard a vocalization for sure, and admit at the time. And now I look back, how you can look back after something happens and you're like, okay, this could have been, that could have been. And just like the turkey noises down there at my hunting place down there in Arkansas, same thing. I mean, imitating a cow elk, a turkey. So apparently they cover a big area, I'm guessing, because if it was imitating an elk, it's been 40, 50 miles from there or more to be able to hear that. Because there is a small elk population in that part of Arkansas, which we've got elk down here now. In fact, about 7 miles from my house, an elk got hit up here on the highway. So a young bull did. So animals travel. So it's
Yeah,
just weird.
absolutely. And the dogman creature that you saw crossing the field with that was a silver color and it had amber color eyes. Do you think for sure that was a dogman, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you're talking about the one that I shot?
Yeah.
We, I've never seen one actually in a field. I've seen them on the edge of. I saw that one on the edge of his field. The ones I saw up there was in the woods.
Okay.
Uh, I believe that's what it was. It had to been by its movements. And after seeing it, when I saw it the second time, the way it leaped and it took off, it didn't have dog-like movements. It was more cat-like. It was, the movements were so smooth. I mean, it transitioned, it leaped from 2 feet to go to 4 feet, hit three-quarters way across the power line, and then leaped into the woods. And it was on all fours, and it was so fluid and smooth. It was just crazy. I've seen a lot of coyotes. I've killed a lot of coyotes. I've killed a lot of bobcats. I've watched them, before I shot them. Their movements. That thing moved and stalked more like a cat than a wolf or a coyote or something. It was the way best I could explain it.
Yeah, and it was upright at one point.
Yes, it was upright when it come up on my stand, below my stand. It was standing on two legs, humped back, had the hump behind the shoulder. It looked like it had a real heavy, almost like a mane, like that ran down. It was around its neck, ran down its back, just slightly past the shoulders on the back, real thick, like it had a hump, kind of like a small buffalo hump on it or something. It's real kind of deformed looking when it was upright. But when it's down on all fours, you don't. It's not near as noticeable. It don't seem like.
Yeah, and the mane that you talked about, is it kind of like a lion? Did it have like longer hair around its neck?
Yeah, it seemed to be just a little bit longer and thicker, a little more pronounced. It was definitely longer. And it was a little bit more off of a is a little bit deeper of a darker gray color, and the rest of the body seemed like it was more like a silverish gray, and that mane kind of looked like a duller, dingier gray, from what I can remember. But
Yeah.
it was like kind of like a lion's mane, but the way it was shaped, it was bizarre because it kind of ran underneath its neck and then went back onto his shoulder, around the shoulder, and then when it came down its back, it tapered back. I don't know if a lion's like that or not. I ain't paid that much attention to how a lion's mane is. It just seemed like to me it just runs around its head on its neck, but this kind of come down the back just a little ways and tapered off.
Yeah, I've seen similar before. It just wasn't upright. It was on all fours, and it jumped into the highway and snatched up a possum. But it was like a silver color, kind of like a blue pit, and its snout was kind of like a hyena, and it had that hair around its neck, like a lion. and the rest of it was pretty short all around its body. But I don't think what I encountered could walk upright because its back legs were like smaller, kind of like, I don't know, like a chihuahua or something. But this thing was the
They
size
are.
of a lion.
They, they are. You're exactly right. That's what more than likely that's what it was. Their hind legs are short in comparison to its front legs,
Maybe we saw
and
the
they
same
can
thing.
walk. It what got me was the first encounter when I saw it. That thing was hunkered down like a cat, and you couldn't tell the lengths of the legs or nothing like that. I mean, you just really couldn't tell. But when that thing was standing upright to me, its front legs was definitely much longer than his hind legs. I mean, by far. I mean, his front legs had to be a foot longer or more, probably a foot and a half. And like I said, but you could tell by looking at the hands. I could still see those hands. I mean, in my mind, it's ingrained in my mind. But if that thing drawed its hands up, it'd be like a paw. If that makes any sense. If they draw that hand up, it'd be like a paw. But when it stretches it out, it's almost like a coon's hand. But the way it was working its hands, it would kind of draw it up. It's almost like it was folded, retracting his knuckles back or something. It was really a bizarre move. I've never seen anything like that. But it was twitching. It was salivating. It was ready to kill that deer. It. Oh, and here's something I saw that a lot of people say it looked like it smiled at me. The the way their mouth is shaped, and I could see this plain as day. It's their mouth is so long it runs back further, and that was the weird part of it. It looked like the mouth run back inches, several inches further than like a wolf or something does, and it curls. The mouth line curls up almost like a smile. It didn't look like a smile to me, but it did curl up, and I'm kind of wondering if that's what people are seeing, and that's why they think it smiled at them.
Yeah, that's terrifying. And do you ever have nightmares about these encounters?
Oh yeah,
Do you feel
not near,
do
not
they ever come to
near
you
like
in
I
your
did.
dreams? Like, do you see them in your dreams?
The most what the the two dreams I the two things I dream about the most. Bigfoot's never in my dreams, never, and I don't know why not. But that dog man, whatever you want to call it, the experience I had where it was on 2 feet standing by my stand. I've had nightmares. It walked up on me, and I was in that stand, and it jumped up and was trying to grab me. And I'd wake up. You jerk and you wake up, and you wake up and you're pouring freaking sweat. I mean, I've had dreams like that, and I dreamed that I was standing in my buddy's field over there, and that thing come running at me, and I was trying to run, and I couldn't run. I was falling down, and about the time it's ready to get me, I'd wake up. It's just stuff like that. It was what I've had. I don't think I've had any in probably a year or better now. But I mean, I live so close to that area over there. I mean, I get paranoid. Uh, that distance, I mean, if I could drive that in 10 minutes, that thing could run that in 10, 15 minutes, or probably less. I don't know. The speed I've seen out of some of this stuff it's indescribable. I mean, how do you judge it? I mean, a deer is fast. These things, either one of these things, just smoke a deer. I mean, they can run a deer down like it ain't nothing. The speed I've seen out of them, and where I was living at, there was a lot of woods pretty close to me. There were some houses around me, but I mean, the woods was right there. I mean, that thing could have just traveled the woods and only had to cross the highway and been right at my house. I mean, it was no, it bothered me. I ended up selling that place, and I do still own a place over there. I own a lot over there, just right within 100 feet of where that house was at. And I won't build back here. I'll probably end up selling it. I don't want to live there. I will not live over there no more. Uh, it's knowing that's over there. No, it just it's bothered me to the point to where even at night here, I mean, I don't go outside unless I got my cordless spotlight, or I make sure the porch light's on and good and lit up. I don't ever walk out to go get something out of the truck or something in the dark, pitch dark. I don't go outside to check on my dogs in the backyard and where I got the chain link at, you know, in the dark. And they go out there all the time. I got little house dogs, and they go outside all the time. They got doggy doors. They can come and go as they please, and I worry about them, but I've never seen nothing down here. There's been some Bigfoot reports probably within 10, 15 miles of here, to the north and south of me, but I think they're older. Uh, which I'm in the middle of farm fields right now. I mean, it's wide open. I can see anything coming from a long ways with a light in daylight. There ain't no sneaking up on nothing down there. There ain't hardly no trees here, so it's wide open, and I feel more comfortable here. I don't like it here. I want to move back, but I don't want to move back to that particular county. I mean, I'm going to move to that place I got down in Arkansas. Is what my plans are right now.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And it's terrifying to know that these creatures are out there, and there's a lot of people that just don't believe in it, and I don't know, it's a shame. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that have had the same encounters and experiences as yourself, and they just never want to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot more people coming forward. I was really shocked because I didn't say nothing. I had one person, my buddy up there. Me and him was on. We shared our stories back and forth. Sometimes we'd do Zoom calls stuff. He actually has pictures, but we get on a Zoom call or something, or a face talk or whatever it is I got on this phone. I forget what it is, but he showed me pictures. He's got pictures. I mean, you know, pictures don't prove nothing now with AI. I mean, anybody can do that. And he ain't no computer genius that could do this. I mean, these things are on his property. He can take you to the exact spot where he takes these pictures. But the first thing he'll tell me if we're on Zoom call, he said, "Don't you be taking a picture of the screen." He said, "Promise me, and I'll show you these pictures." And I said, "I promise, I won't do it. I won't do it to you." Because what am I going to do with it? If I put them out there, you know, realistically, I'm telling my stories. I don't want everybody to know who I am. I don't want everybody to think I'm a crackpot, because that's the way everybody looks at you, except for people that's had an experience and actually accepts what they saw, and I don't blame him. But if I had the pictures, I don't know if I would release them either. I really don't, because it don't prove nothing. I mean, realistically, you're gonna have to have a body, and I don't think you could ever get a body and be able to hang on to prove it without the government coming in and taking it. That's my feeling of it, because from what I've been told, there's more to this about what he was telling me went on up there. I ain't gonna get into all that, because he got pretty hairy up there for him on that. And the government is in the know on this. It's just like they threw out the UFO things. They're doing those videos out, and about that time when they shoved that out there, just before they shoved that out there was Bigfoot sightings, there was dogman sightings, werewolf, whatever you want to call them. People calling them everything down here. It's happening, and people reporting them, and the government shoves out UFO videos. It's they're doing that. Look at this. Well, this is going on over here. Don't pay no attention to it. Look at this over here. Here's some UFOs for you to look at. You know, the government doesn't have to kill you to get rid of you now. They can just discredit you and humiliate you, and that's the way they work right now. I know that for a fact. I've known people that actually have had evidence. I know a guy that got plaster tracks, and he got that stuff out there, and that stuff disappeared off the internet in less than a month. He lost his job. He ended up divorced. I mean, the government came down on him so bad. They ruined his life, is what they done. They ruined his life. That's why, kudos to people like you that's going out here and doing this stuff. I mean, but they're watching, they're waiting. You get hardcore evidence and you throw it out there. But now with the AI, I don't think they're going to really care, because there's so much fake crap being thrown out there right now. It's not even funny. I mean, you don't know what's real and what's not now, as far as pictures go.
Yeah, absolutely. They know about these creatures and all the strange phenomenon that's taken place, and they don't want to admit it or talk about it to the public.
Oh, no, they don't. It's like I don't. I hear you talking about the Fort Leonard Wood area. I got a friend up there. Actually, he lived up in that vicinity. Actually, he served in the military, and he was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood. And he could tell some wild stories of what he's seen up there. He's a big time hunter, and but he's one of them kind of guys. He ain't scared of nothing. He said, "I'm right with the Lord, and I ain't afraid to die." And I think that's how, man, he was. He went through Desert Storm. That was his first ordeal. He was. I don't know how many times he had been shot, 5 or 6 times. He was blown up 3 times. I mean, can't tell it. I mean, yeah, he's got scars all over his body, but he can tell you some things, the things he's seen here stateside and overseas. He said government knows. He was really high up. He was in special forces, and he said he had access to a lot of stuff. And he said he's when we talk on the phone, it's like in the olden days when I don't know if you remember the days of the party line, but you could tell when somebody picked up the phone on the party line and was listening in. It would go down, you could hear it, and it would make the person you're talking to, it would lower the volume of their voice. And a lot of times, if we get to talking about this stuff on the phone, sometimes our call will get disconnected or it'll start breaking up. And he said, yeah, he said, Uncle Sam's still listening to me. And I don't doubt him one bit because I know a lot of things he's done. I mean, he's very well decorated, and he won't come out on it. He'll sit there and tell you about it, but he ain't gonna come out publicly and do it. I mean, because of what he used to do. I mean, he in the military, he did a lot of things in the military. I mean, he's one of those kind of people. I'm proud to call him a friend because he served this country and he served his country well, way beyond what most people would ever dream of doing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get him on the show and talk about the encounters that he had in Missouri and Fort Leonard Wood and overseas.
Yeah, like I said, most of the people I know, good luck on that. They don't. They probably talk to you, but they would never come on and do it. I don't believe they would.
Yeah. Well,
I know my friend has got the farm up or the cattle ranch up there. He wouldn't. There's no way.
yeah. Well, maybe one day he will, and maybe you can convince him to come on the show. That'd be excellent, and I think it'd help a lot of people out. But I understand if he doesn't want to talk about it, and yeah, it makes sense.
I see where he's coming from on that. I really do. I mean, I I don't. I wouldn't come out publicly. I wouldn't come out on video and tell what I've told just because of the ridicule you'll get, the harassment you'll get from it. It
Hmm.
this way, I ain't worried about it. I ain't sweating. And I mean, there's gonna be some people figure out where this all took place at. 'Cause I've talked to enough people. Some people, they know they've seen things, but most people just don't want to talk about it. That's the whole problem with it. And you know that as well as I do. People don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to do it publicly
Yeah.
because of the repercussions.
Hmm. Yeah. It's a shame, but that's how it is with our society, and people have been, you know, convinced that it's not okay to talk about because of the ridicule.
Absolutely. When I started following you, it was because of the Killing Field videos,
Hmm.
and that's when for some reason, when I started seeing it, I'm like, this guy needs to know there's other things up there. It's not just a Bigfoot up there. There's something else up there, and I'm telling you, you don't want to see this thing in the woods. You don't want to run into this thing.
Yeah. Well,
It
I appreciate you for letting me know. And I've never seen Dogman other than that canine creature that I told you about. People say it's a hellhound. I'm not sure if it was a Dogman, but I've heard one before, and it sounded like a Hollywood werewolf call, like on steroids, going through like a loud PA system.
wow.
Hmm.
See, I've never heard that. Never heard a sound. That I knew for sure at the time that's what it was. So the vocal part just don't know. And like I say, you don't see tracks up there where I hunt at. It's rock. hard ground, hard packed ground and rock. So you're never gonna find a track.
Yeah, it's pretty hard
And
soil out here.
yeah, so unless they get off, there's some places down in the bottoms on that farm you could probably find some, but to get into there's a pond in the woods down in a valley down there. It's just right below where my stand's at. And I won't go to it because you got to duck down and follow a deer trail, and it's so growed up. I mean, you almost got to get on your hands and knees and crawl through there. I ain't gonna do it
Mm-hmm.
because what do you ain't got nowhere to go if you run into something before you get to that pond. And there's a pond back there. I've went to it a few times, and and my buddy that owns it even told me that place. He said even when his folks was alive, that place to give him. He said it just seemed like a dark place. He said it give you the creeps, and he told me that, and I was like, I got that feeling down there too. I said I won't go back there to it again. I went down there and looked. Yeah, there's a lot of deer tracks, and it dries up a lot. It's a very old pond. Ain't no telling how old it is, but it dries up a lot, in the hot weather. But I don't think I've been to it in 4 or 5 years because the simple fact you got to get down now and crawl, get back up in there to it is so thick. You'd have to, really hunker down, and it'd be a horrible way to try to get into there. And if you ran into something while you're in there, what are you going to do? You ain't hardly got room to turn around. You can't run. You're stuck. I don't want to walk into, crawl into something in there. Like I said, I stay on the roads there and on that power line. I do not venture off into them thickets. I don't do it, except for to grab a deer, and that's usually in the open part of the timber right next to the power line, right where I hunt. That's it. And a lot of times I will drop them right there in that power line. I don't want to go into those woods. I won't unless I have to recover game. That's it.
Yeah,
I don't.
absolutely. I know, like at the current river conservation area, a lot of those fields are really far back there. And yeah, they're right off the chalk roads, but you have to walk a long ways to get back there. And maybe, like, let's say somebody dropped you off on a side by side. If you did encounter a dogman or a Bigfoot, you got a long ways to go until you get back home.
Yeah, you're had. If they want you, they got you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, I apologize if my interview skills were off, and it's hard for me to talk thinking about this stuff. It honestly terrifies me because I live around here and I think about all the experiences and encounters that I've had, and it kind of just has me, you know, shaken up a little bit. So I apologize if I didn't do a good job at interviewing you.
No problem. I'm still stuttering. I don't stutter until you get to talking about this, and this still shakes me up because I've went more in depth with you on everything on that part of the dog man than I ever have at one time with anybody. I don't talk about it for very long because it rattles me. I'm stuttering. I'm not a stuttering person. And I've been sitting there chain smoking ever since we started talking. We got it once I started going in depth on it. I started lighting cigarette after cigarette. It's something I don't wish it on nobody. If you see one of these things, you won't forget it. It's ingrained in your mind forever. Is people going out looking for this stuff? Don't you know? Be careful what you wish for because as you can't unsee what you see, and once you see it, it's in your mind, and it's always in the back of your mind, especially after dark. And my thing is, I've never seen anything in the dark. It's always been broad daylight, and I'm half-ass scared of the dark. If I'm in my house, I'm fine, but go outside, it's dark. I gotta have a light to get to the truck. Porch lights are going to be on. I mean, it's going to be lit up. I mean, it's affected me that much. And I've never been scared of the dark. I mean, I used to go, hunting. I'd go to my stand, 30 minutes an hour before day. I like get up, stand, let everything's calmed down, settled down. Not no more. I ain't done that in years. I mean, it will alter your life. I mean, period.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I love the outdoors and hunting. And ever since I had my encounters and the more I've done this podcast, the less I hunt, honestly. I get out there and I look for answers and, look for evidence. But once nighttime rolls around, I don't know, it's just a whole different world out there. And it doesn't matter if you got night vision or thermal, you can't see but like 30, 50 feet in front of you, even with the gear. So it's hard
Yeah.
telling what's around you.
That's exactly why I keep a cordless spot in my backpack. I mean, if I do end up having to be out there after dark in the evenings, I've got a light. I got a big light. I got a headlamp, and I got a cordless spotlight with me, just so I can see. It just That's the only way I feel secure, and I'm still nervous. But if I didn't have it, oh Lord, I mean, there was a couple times I forgot to charge it. I'd used it so many times it went dead on me before I got to the truck, and I was shaking. I was trembling by the time I got to the truck because I could see just enough to around my feet to walk, and that was it. I could tell I was in the tracks of the road going down the power line. That was it. That's all I could tell. I couldn't see nothing off to the sides of me. And then your mind starts playing tricks on you. And I mean, that's what people don't get. You get a PTSD from this stuff. And I've never thought I'd ever have PTSD from anything. I've experienced a lot of crazy stuff in my life. But that thing there, a dog, I mean, Bigfoot, no fear, no problem with that. I'd rather prefer to see them from 100 yards or more. But a dog, man, I don't want to ever see one again. I don't care to even see another Bigfoot again. I really don't. But it just seems like the places I go, what it is, the places that I have these encounters in, nobody else is there. That's why. Nobody hunts these places. There's nobody around you. That's why they're there. There's a lot of game, there's a lot of food, and there's no people. Perfect for a predator that don't want to be, noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of land out there, and it's a perfect place for something like this to hide. And the strange part is that even areas where there's a lot of people, a big population of people with a lot of woods, these things are still being seen. I mean, there's still stories from or encounters from Florida. So these things
Yeah,
can just hide really good.
yeah. I mean, it don't really matter where you're at. I mean, you could live in the middle of the city, and I think you could still have an encounter if there's any kind of a creek with some trees along it, a park or something with some woods. I mean, they could be anywhere.
Hmm. Yeah.
They're just masters of their environment, and they can blend in so well. If they don't want you to see them, you won't see them. But it just seems like to me, if they come around, I see them. I still see glimpses once in a while, but they ain't coming near me. They're crossing through. They ain't bothering me. I ain't gonna bother them. But if that's Bigfoot. There's enough Bigfoot around. There's a bunch of them in the Ozarks, and people don't realize how many they're everywhere. They are literally everywhere. If you go out there and look, it's just most people, if they see something at a distance, they just don't think nothing of it, and that's the problem. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, I saw something. I don't know what it was. It could have been a bear." Okay, think what you want. When you get it up close, you get it close enough. You get it under 75 yards, 50 yards, and even closer, then you're gonna know it wasn't a bear, or it wasn't somebody that wasn't wearing orange. It was wearing brown Carhartts or a black set of black Carhartts. Uh, you'll know then. But most people just they don't want to admit it. They think that's just Hollywood crap, and it's not. It's real. They're covering this up because the way I see it, my theory on it is look at what it would do to tourism, the national parks, the timber industry, and the list goes on and on and on. If they find out there's animals out there that can rip them limb from limb and eat them, that's going to deter a lot of people. I know people that was in the timber industry that actually own sawmills and they had their own logging crews and stuff. They won't hardly ever go out to the woods unless they got somebody with them and they got a very high powered rifle with them. And they won't stick around in the woods. They spend most of their time up at their sawmills because they've seen things and they know they're out there. They don't want to go out there. They have a fear of it because of what they've seen and as close as they've seen it. They know it exists, but they don't. They ain't gonna tell anybody. They ain't gonna tell their people working for them, hey, you better watch out. There's a wolf out here walking on two legs. Or there's a big ape looking thing running around out here. When you run your chainsaw, kind of keep an eye around. It might be a 8 to 10 foot tall ape come walking up on you. Who the hell wants to go out and work that kind of an environment? Because Mark Twain, they market to timber. The majority of the timber cut, around southeast Missouri is coming off the Mark Twain.
Yeah. I guess it's not worth it for them to tell people that these things exist, and maybe in their minds they think it's so rare that the chance of somebody coming across one of these creatures is very slim. But in the grand scheme of things, there's a long list of missing people out there, and they've never been found.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. If you look up, the towns in Ripley County, Oregon County, and Carter County, all the missing people. That's something that's not advertised, but if you go dig into it, there's a bunch. I know of over a dozen people from the Doniphan area that went missing. People that I knew of myself, and they disappeared. And the joke of it used to be, oh, they went to California. When somebody disappears, oh, that's the joke. The sheriff's department used to use, oh, they went to California. Never heard from again.
Yeah. I have an
And again,
AI
I think,
system that looks up, it can look up anything. You can ask it anything like Google, but I looked up missing people in the Mark Twain, and the list of people kept going on and on and on and on
yep,
and on. And you can't really find it without going to like the state patrol and getting a list for yourself. But this system can look it up for me. And I was just looking up like the Daniel Boone National Forest in Kentucky. There's a long list. The Sumter
hmm
National Forest in South Carolina. And there's just so many missing people out there that people aren't even aware of that. If they're not aware of Bigfoot and Dogman, they're certainly not aware of how many missing people there are around them.
no, because they don't publicize it. But, you heard about that deer hunter last deer season? I think it was up around
Yeah,
Hunter, Missouri. That's just north of Doniphan. It ain't very far at all.
yeah.
And
And the
they
Ozarks
found
Scenic
him.
Riverways, is that the guy?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would be about 15 miles north of where I've had a lot of my experience of the place I hunt. 15, 20 miles, something like that. I'm guessing by air. I don't know. I have to get on a map and do a straight line shot to it, but that's not far up there. And that guy, I knew some of the people that went up there and was helping look for that guy because he was from Sykes, I believe from Sykeston.
Yeah, he
And
was.
and they said where they found his body, he was not there the day before. And they come back the next day and he was going to start off pretty close to where they thought he had been sitting at. They found where he had been sitting at, and his body had been placed back in that same spot. They said he was broke up. They didn't let that out. He said that when they found that body, he said both the bones in his body was broke.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that part. I just know that they went back the next day and the body was right there where they already searched, and he was away from his gun, a pretty good ways away from the
Yeah.
gun. So, yeah, that is frightening. I've looked up the Ozark Trail as well. There's a ton of missing people on the Ozark Trail.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the Irish wilderness over there is supposed to be a hot spot too. From I know some people used to live up that way, and I've heard a lot of stories from up there too. Because that's what is that 10,000 square acres or something up there of this walk in or horseback only. Nothing with wheels is allowed in there. I used to deer hunt up there years ago, back when I was really young. When I could drag a deer for 2 or 3 miles. But yeah, I mean, go in there on foot. I mean, it's a big area. I mean, there's a hiking trail that circles all the way around that thing. And I've talked to some people that went back there and hiked it and camped out in here and made 2, 3 days of it. I think it's 18 miles. It's a 18-mile hiking trail. It covers some pretty rough ground, and they said there's been a lot of people disappear up there too, and you can't find no record of it.
Yeah, that's terrifying. And when you know what's truly out there, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it doesn't answer all the questions, but you speculate, is this the reason why so many people are going missing?
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
There's a lot. You could say maybe 50% of it could be foul play, but just after seeing what I've seen, it's like no, it takes you in a different direction. It really makes you wonder if that's something else got them. Something got them.
Yeah.
You'll never know. You'll never know.
Yeah,
You'll never
absolutely.
know.
Like, I'm sure a big portion of those missing people, a big percentage is like foul play, murders, just evil people, and you got like mental health issues and drugs, things like that. But
Yeah,
even if it's just 1%, if just 1% was cryptids, there would still be a long, long, long list of people.
Exactly, because most of the time, what I've noticed is the deaths around here, if it's drug related, and there's a lot of that happens. I mean, they find the body. They find the body. The body always seems to appear. They find the body.
Yeah.
Probably 90% of the time. But the rest of them, where they at?
Yeah. Normally, if
If
it's
they,
drug related or like some type of murder, like homicide, like they make it public. But whenever
yeah,
it's something strange and it has to do with cryptids or UFOs, you won't really get an answer.
nope. Like, they're very select in what they say and how they say it, and they ain't going to go in that direction with it.
Yeah, it'll be a story that
But,
doesn't make sense, and they'll just be like hypothermia.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, you speaking up about your encounters helps people out and helps people in the future and people that have already had these same experiences.
I hope it does too. I don't encourage nobody to go out and do like what you do, because I don't think the majority of people can handle the reality of it. I just don't believe they could. I think it would screw them up for life, because it does change your life. And you listen to you talk about your encounters. You've had enough encounters. I know it's changed you. You have any amount of encounters, your whole world's changed because you grew up. Well, I look at it is you grew up. All these things you were told that weren't real are real. Everything was a lie. You were lied to your whole life until you seen it with your own eyes. And what else is going on out there now? I've heard some stories about I call them crawlers. I know two people that said they was it a rake? I think they called them a rake. Those gray things, long and lanky, uh, like a pale gray color, like skin over bone with like a Martian bulging type head and black eyes. I've heard two people talking about they saw something like that, driving around in the Mark Twain. And I don't want to see one, but that wasn't nowhere near where I was at. I go, so I just hope I never see one. I don't want to see anything else. I really don't. I don't want to see no more of what I've seen. Seen enough.
Yeah.
Done with it. If I do, I do. I mean, I know a little better how to react to it. I know, don't aggravate the situation. Just let it go on, and everything seems to be okay. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just glad. I guess I can say I'm just glad I never had a bad encounter, you know, where I was attacked or bluff charged or anything got aggressive. That's the thing I'm most thankful for. I think good Lord above's watched out for me, because that time when that thing walked into my stand, I about lost it. I mean, I'm looking at something, when you're that close, I could have spit on it. I mean, I could have spit on it. And it's not supposed to exist. This is something off of Underworld, Silver Bullet. The list goes on and on and on. It's Hollywood. It's not real. That stuff ain't supposed to exist. You know, and people got to understand, when you see these things, you got to talk to somebody about it. You really got to find somebody you can trust and talk about, because if you don't talk about it, it will consume you. And I'm glad I've got a few good friends. I'm kind of a loner to a certain extent. I have some really good friends. I mean, but I'm not a real people person, but I'm glad I've had some good people to talk to. I got a great, awesome wife. I mean, she listens to me, when I feel like talking about it, and I'm still shaking. I was bringing that crap up again about that damn werewolf looking thing. I mean, it's to me, that's my biggest nightmare right there. I would have called you. I'd almost called you a liar to your face. If you told me you saw something like that, Bigfoot. I can believe that. I've always believed that there was a Bigfoot out there. Ever since I grew up, I was born in the 60s, so I was little bitty when the Patty film was made, and into the 70s, Bigfoot. And in the 80s, Bigfoot, finding Bigfoot, all that stuff. I used to watch that stuff. I believe it, but a lot of that stuff's cheesy crap. I mean, they're not showing nothing. They're not doing that. They're not going to. They're not going to be. They ain't gonna let them put that on TV. It's not going to happen. Something real is not going to be put on TV about that for now. Anyways, they're not allowing it. And I know there's a couple people out there that's got videos, that's got pictures. They, it's like they said, you'll never ever be able to put it on TV until the government admits to that they exist. Until then, you're a crackpot. It's there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it best whenever you mentioned these encounters and not talking about it with people will consume you. And that's completely, correct. Whenever I had my encounters, like I told myself, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. They'll just think I'm crazy. And the more I balled it up inside, like the more it started to consume me. It started to infest my thoughts. And I thought, man, I'm going to have to tell someone.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It does consume you, and so you can actually start talking about it. I can understand some people don't have to talk about it. That's fine. I mean, everybody handles things in different ways, but most people have to be able to talk about things that they can't explain. They're digging, they're grasping for straws. They're trying to understand what happened. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to talk to people, like-minded people, or people that's open-minded. It's like my friend now. He lives about 17 miles north of me, and as when he had that little bit of an encounter down there, he didn't actually get to really see. He saw it moving in the shadows. It was in the shadows, real good. He didn't see it, but he saw it. He could see something moving in the shadows, and he could hear it walking away. And he called me. He called me. This was the next night. He's got two little house dogs, two little Shih Tzus, I think it is. And he walks them down his driveway. Now he lives in the middle of a 100-acre farm, and he's up just up in the edge of the hills up there. And he said he heard two whoops and a triple tree knock. Hit whack, whack, whack. That night, the next night. And he said, "Do you think they followed me home?" I said, "I don't know, dude." I said, "You're open-minded. Things will present." It seems like to me, if you're open-minded, things will present themselves to you. It's
Yeah.
like that dude from the paranormal study. He said, "You got to be open-minded." He said, "If you're open-minded, things will present themselves to you. Or if somebody they don't believe, that's the ones that get taken, or they won't show themselves to them."
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The more you're open minded to it, the more you're out to have an encounter, and the more you look into it, the more you're out to experience this stuff.
Yeah, I don't care to experience no more. And now that I got some more story, I could tell stories on the Kandahar giant, because I know people that was over there and stuff like that. I ain't gonna get into all that, but the stuff on the giants is coming out now. Uh, YouTube is flooded with it right now. They're bringing out a bunch of videos. There was a lot of stuff that was on there several years ago that disappeared off there. The skeletal remains they had found. It just disappeared. All these big mounds and stuff. Now it's starting to come back out, and that's a scary thought. How would you like to walk up on a 10, 12-foot giant out there, or bigger? Uh, I've already seen things that ain't supposed to exist, and now they're talking giants, and there's crawlers, rakes, whatever you want to call them. And then if you well, they call it like the woo side of it. You get into the paranormal part of it. That's the part I want to stay away from. I mean, in my opinion, there's no such thing as ghost. That that is demonic, in my opinion. With my religious beliefs, that's demonic. There ain't such a thing as a ghost. That's demonic. I don't believe in spirits that are trapped here or nothing like that. I believe that. I truly believe that's demonic. It's got to be, according to the Bible, from what I understand. And you can't, don't quote me on that, but that's my opinion of it. But
Yeah.
if that's involved, if that's part of it,
Hmm.
I ain't gonna leave. I'm leaving the door open on that. I mean, I can't close it and say yay or nay. I've never seen a portal. And look at all the portal reports coming out now. That's crazy. All the portal reports. I dive into the stuff. I get bored. And there's days. Sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 days. I have nothing to do, and I'll be digging into this stuff and looking at it. But the portals are really popping up everywhere now. Everybody talk about portals. It's like wow. I don't. I ain't gonna deny anybody seeing anything now after what I saw. I think anything's pretty much possible now. I'm
Yeah.
wide open. I'm completely wide open now.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. And it's a mystery, and all these things are really happening, and hopefully more people tune in the future and talk about their encounters, and maybe we'll get somewhere.
Absolutely. I'd like to see that day come. I really would.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to know what's truly going on. But yeah, Jimmy, you did an excellent job today, and I really do appreciate you for sharing everything. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. But if you experience or encounter anything else in the future, feel free to reach back out to me.
Okay. Appreciate you having me on, Miguel. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, and keep in touch, my friend.
All right.
All
Bye.
right. Yep. Bye. All right, Jimmy, thank you very much for reporting your encounters here on Sasquatch Theory, and it certainly helped me out. I know it helped David from the Killing Fields out, and I know a lot of people found your encounters to be very interesting and helpful. I know these encounters can be very traumatizing because I've had the same experiences, but it does help speaking to someone else about this who understands and getting it off your chest. So I really do appreciate you for rising up and sharing all that information with all of us. And there's a lot to learn from it. You had a lot of information to share, a lot of encounters, and I would really like to hear about your friend's encounters that he had on his cattle ranch. I'm sure there's other people nearby in the same area that have had the same experiences, and hopefully they'll speak up as well. Even though I've had my own encounters, it took a while to really realize what's truly going on, and after speaking to a lot of people about their personal experiences, it terrifies me a little more and a little more after each person I speak to. I mean, the more you process and understand this information, it makes it a little bit more difficult to go out in the woods. Maybe for some people it makes it a little bit easier, but not for me. The more people I speak to, the harder it is to go out hunting early in the morning and staying until it gets dark. But I guess it's something I have to overcome, but you just never know what you're going to encounter out there in the forest. Alright guys, I just wanted to apologize. The videos have been a little slow lately, but I'm trying to get things together in my personal life. And yeah, if you guys have an encounter that you would like to share with me here on Sasquatch Theory, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. God bless, my friends. Take care and be safe out there.